What if one kingdom controlled Asia without conquering vast territories or continents? What if its greatest weapon was neither swords nor armies nor fortresses? Instead, its power came from something impossible to fence or possess completely. The sea became its kingdom, its highway, and its greatest source of wealth. Across Asia, merchants carried silks, spices, gold, and priceless treasures daily. Most of those voyages depended upon one strategic maritime crossroads. Whoever controlled those waters controlled the flow of international commerce entirely. For centuries, that controller was a kingdom called Srivijaya. Its influence stretched across seas, connecting civilizations and empires far apart. Ships respected its authority long before reaching its bustling ports safely. Traders from distant lands knew the name Srivijaya well. It represented wealth, stability, opportunity, and unmatched maritime influence throughout Asia. Unlike many kingdoms, Srivijaya built prosperity through commerce rather than conquest alone. Its ports became gathering places for cultures, languages, and beliefs everywhere. The kingdom transformed geography itself into an extraordinary strategic advantage. By controlling maritime choke points, Srivijaya influenced trade on a massive scale. Riches flowed continuously through its harbors from every direction imaginable. The kingdom seemed destined for endless prosperity and influence forever. Yet history often hides surprising endings behind extraordinary success stories. Even the strongest maritime powers eventually face challenges beyond expectation. Srivijaya's story contains triumph, ambition, mystery, and a painful lesson. Because one day the sea that enriched Srivijaya would change. And when the sea changes, entire civilizations can follow unexpectedly. This is the story of Asia's forgotten ruler of the seas. In the 7th century, Srivijaya saw opportunities others completely overlooked around them. Many kingdoms focused on land, territory, agriculture, and expanding borders aggressively. Srivijaya focused instead on movement, trade, and strategic maritime geography. Its leaders recognized something simple yet incredibly powerful about commerce and influence. Goods traveling between civilizations required safe routes through specific waters repeatedly. Those waters passed directly through Srivijaya's sphere of control and authority. The Strait of Malacca became one of history's most valuable corridors. Ships from distant regions crossed these routes carrying immense wealth constantly. Whoever secured these passages gained influence far beyond local borders alone. Srivijaya understood this reality earlier than many competing powers nearby. Instead of conquering everything, it controlled what everyone needed most desperately. Access to trade meant access to prosperity, information, and political leverage. Strong naval forces protected shipping routes while maintaining order across strategic waters. Merchants preferred predictable environments where business could flourish without constant disruption. Srivijaya provided exactly that, attracting commerce from across Asia steadily. Ports grew larger as international traders arrived with increasing frequency annually. New opportunities emerged whenever foreign ships entered Srivijaya's busy harbors successfully. Wealth accumulated rapidly through taxes, services, and commercial partnerships everywhere. Valuable goods filled warehouses waiting for transport across vast distances overseas. Gold, spices, ceramics, and silk passed through these thriving marketplaces daily. Prosperity transformed Srivijaya into one of Asia's influential maritime centers. Success attracted admiration, opportunity, and attention from surrounding powers alike. But extraordinary wealth rarely remains unnoticed for very long in history. The richer Srivijaya became, the more dangerous its future quietly grew. As decades passed, Srivijaya evolved into a maritime powerhouse unlike any other. Its influence extended across seas, connecting some of history's richest civilizations. The kingdom prospered because ships constantly depended upon its strategic location. Merchants arrived from China, India, Arabia, and neighboring regions, continuously seeking opportunities. Different languages echoed throughout harbors, bustling with commercial activity every day. Diverse cultures interacted peacefully through trade, cooperation, and mutual interests. Srivijaya's naval forces safeguarded maritime routes essential to regional prosperity and stability. Their presence discouraged piracy while protecting valuable commercial networks effectively. Stability encouraged even greater economic growth throughout the kingdom's territories. Warehouses expanded to accommodate increasing quantities of imported and exported goods. Wealth flowed through the kingdom like powerful currents crossing open seas endlessly. Few powers could rival Srivijaya's influence over maritime commerce during this era. Yet Srivijaya represented more than economic success and political authority alone. It also became a respected center of Buddhist scholarship and learning. Students traveled significant distances to study within its intellectual communities. Among them was Yijing, a Chinese monk documenting his experiences carefully. His writings praised Srivijaya's importance as a center of knowledge and religion. Those accounts remain valuable historical evidence supporting the kingdom's significance today. Streets reflected remarkable diversity as visitors from many lands interacted daily. Trade connected people whose backgrounds differed dramatically across vast geographical distances. Srivijaya thrived because it welcomed connections rather than fearing outside influences. At its height, the kingdom seemed prosperous, stable, and virtually unstoppable. The sea delivered wealth while strengthening Srivijaya's position year after year. But history often tests powers precisely when they appear strongest. Extraordinary wealth attracts admiration, but it also attracts envy and dangerous ambitions. Srivijaya's success became impossible for neighboring powers to ignore any longer. Across Asia, rulers noticed how trade continuously enriched the maritime kingdom. Every prosperous harbor seemed to reinforce Srivijaya's growing influence and prestige. Merchants praised its stability, while rivals questioned its expanding authority increasingly. Economic power often creates political tensions beneath the surface quietly. Strategic waterways under Srivijaya's control affected countless commercial interests regionally. Dependence on those routes made the kingdom both powerful and vulnerable. The same position bringing wealth could eventually attract determined challengers. Other kingdoms watched carefully, searching for opportunities or weaknesses constantly. Some admired Srivijaya's achievements, while others viewed them with resentment. Influence creates friends, but it can also create dangerous enemies unexpectedly. Behind closed doors, discussions emerged about reducing Srivijaya's maritime dominance strategically. Rivals understood controlling trade meant controlling wealth and future opportunities. Few openly challenged Srivijaya, yet concern continued spreading gradually among competitors. Meanwhile, the kingdom remained confident in its naval strength and position. Its fleets protected routes effectively while commerce continued flourishing without interruption. Prosperity made it easy to believe success would continue indefinitely. However, storms often form long before sailors notice darkening horizons approaching. History rarely announces major threats before they arrive unexpectedly. Somewhere beyond Srivijaya's immediate attention, another power was rising steadily. This power possessed ambition, resources, and its own formidable naval capabilities. It would soon challenge assumptions that seemed unquestionable for generations, and the first signs of danger were already moving across distant seas. Far to the west, another ambitious power was expanding across South India rapidly. It was the Chola Empire, wealthy, organized, and increasingly influential regionally. Unlike many kingdoms, the Cholas understood maritime power exceptionally well themselves. Their shipyards produced fleets capable of operating far beyond coastal waters safely. Naval strength became a central element of their imperial ambitions strategically. The sea offered opportunities just as it had for Srivijaya earlier. Rajendra Chola I sought greater influence over international trade networks increasingly. He recognized how much wealth passed through Srivijaya-controlled maritime routes annually. Such prosperity inevitably attracted attention from rulers seeking similar advantages elsewhere. Competition over trade can become as intense as wars over territory itself. Both empires depended heavily on maritime commerce and regional influence significantly. Their interests increasingly overlapped within the same strategic economic corridors. Eventually, Chola fleets departed on an expedition unlike previous regional campaigns. Powerful warships crossed the ocean carrying soldiers toward distant destinations deliberately. Their objective extended beyond simple raiding or temporary military demonstrations alone. The voyage demanded courage, planning, and remarkable logistical coordination throughout. Storms, distance, and uncertainty challenged crews traveling across unfamiliar waters. Yet the fleet continued forward with unwavering determination and purpose. Meanwhile, life in Srivijaya appeared prosperous and secure as usual. Merchants negotiated deals while ships arrived carrying valuable cargoes daily. Few suspected a major challenge was approaching from beyond the horizon. Then distant sails appeared where none were expected previously. What followed would shock one of Asia's greatest maritime powers profoundly. The sea that built Srivijaya was bringing danger directly to its doorstep. Then disaster arrived faster than anyone within Srivijaya could anticipate or imagine. Chola forces launched coordinated attacks against key Srivijaya-controlled ports suddenly. The strikes targeted economic centers essential to maritime trade and administration. Naval battles erupted across waters previously associated with prosperity and stability. Confusion spread rapidly as defenders attempted understanding the scale of attacks. Enemy forces appeared in places considered secure only days before recently. Harbors filled with panic as merchants abandoned cargo and sought safety immediately. Years of accumulated wealth suddenly seemed vulnerable to destruction and seizure. The shock was psychological as much as military for Srivijaya's leaders. Strategic facilities fell under attack while communication became increasingly difficult everywhere. The kingdom struggled to coordinate responses across vast maritime territories effectively. Fires illuminated harbors that once symbolized prosperity and international prestige. Burning ships drifted across waters that had enriched generations previously. The sight challenged assumptions about Srivijaya's invulnerability dramatically and painfully. For the first time, fear replaced confidence throughout many important regions. Reports arrived describing attacks against multiple locations almost simultaneously across territories. Leaders struggled separating rumors from confirmed information amid widespread confusion. Every new message seemed worse than the one before. The attacks exposed vulnerabilities hidden beneath decades of extraordinary success unexpectedly. Maritime dominance alone could not guarantee security against determined rivals forever. The sea had become a pathway for invasion instead of prosperity. Yet the most surprising truth emerged only after the fighting ended. The attack wounded Srivijaya deeply, but it did not destroy immediately. Something far more dangerous was already beginning beneath the surface. Surprisingly, Srivijaya survived the Chola attacks and continued functioning afterwards successfully. Ports were repaired while trade gradually resumed across important maritime networks. On the surface, recovery seemed possible despite recent devastating setbacks experienced. Yet history rarely repeats exactly after major disruptions transform established systems. Merchants constantly seek efficiency, safety, and profitable alternatives whenever circumstances change. New opportunities emerged elsewhere across Asia's evolving commercial landscape steadily. Trade routes began shifting in subtle ways difficult to recognize immediately. Small changes accumulated gradually until larger patterns became increasingly noticeable. The world surrounding Srivijaya was evolving faster than before significantly. New ports gained importance as merchants explored different routes and partnerships. Competition increased within regions once dominated almost exclusively by Srivijaya previously. Influence that seemed permanent suddenly required constant effort to maintain effectively. Fewer ships arrived compared with the kingdom's earlier golden decades. The decline appeared modest initially, almost insignificant to casual observers. However, economies dependent on trade noticed even small reductions quickly. Officials monitored revenues and commercial activity with growing concern carefully. Patterns suggested deeper structural changes rather than temporary setbacks alone. The foundations of Srivijaya's prosperity were beginning to shift gradually. Meanwhile, competing ports expanded their influence by attracting international merchants steadily. Every successful competitor reduced Srivijaya's unique strategic advantage slightly. The kingdom still possessed strength, wealth, and experience in abundance. Yet tides do not ask permission before changing direction unexpectedly. And the tide of history was moving away from Srivijaya slowly. The greatest threat was no longer invasion, but transformation itself. Decline rarely arrives dramatically, it often advances quietly through ordinary changes daily. Srivijaya remained important, but its dominance no longer seemed unquestionable anymore. The difference appeared gradually through reduced activity across once crowded harbors. Merchants increasingly discovered alternatives offering convenience, opportunity, and emerging commercial advantages. Trade follows incentives rather than loyalty, tradition, or historical prestige alone. As routes diversified, Srivijaya lost portions of its economic influence steadily. Warehouses, once overflowing with goods, experienced longer periods of inactivity unexpectedly. Fewer arrivals meant fewer taxes and reduced resources supporting regional authority. Small declines compounded into larger challenges difficult to reverse successfully. Elsewhere, ambitious ports expanded rapidly by serving changing commercial demands efficiently. New centers emerged, attracting traders who previously depended upon Srivijaya extensively. Competition transformed the maritime landscape across Southeast Asia significantly. Srivijaya's leaders recognized the danger and searched for effective responses urgently. Experience and tradition offered guidance, but not always practical solutions anymore. The world had changed, and old formulas produced diminishing results increasingly. History resembles the ocean more than a fortress built from stone permanently. Currents shift direction regardless of human expectations or carefully crafted ambitions. Those unable to adapt often discover their advantages disappearing unexpectedly over time. Maritime maps reflected changing realities as routes evolved beyond familiar patterns. Influence followed movement, and movement followed opportunity wherever it appeared naturally. Srivijaya watched these changes unfold while struggling to maintain previous dominance. From coastal towers, fewer sails appeared across horizons once crowded daily. The silence carried a message more troubling than any invading fleet. The age of Srivijaya was slowly drifting toward its end. Eventually, the changes became impossible to dismiss or explain away any longer. Srivijaya remained present, but no longer commanded regional trade as before. The kingdom that once directed maritime commerce watched influence slowly diminish. Experienced officials remembered busier years when ships filled every available harbor. They understood something precious was slipping beyond their control gradually. No single battle caused this loss, making it harder to confront directly. Rival ports prospered by adapting to changing conditions and opportunities quickly. Commerce followed momentum, creating new centers of wealth and influence elsewhere. The sea remained active, but not necessarily in Srivijaya's favor anymore. Waves erased distinctions between yesterday's rulers and tomorrow's rising powers. History rarely guarantees permanent leadership, regardless of previous achievements or success. Every generation faces challenges requiring adaptation beyond established traditions and strengths. Monuments endured, reminding people of extraordinary accomplishments from earlier centuries. Yet memories alone could not restore lost strategic advantages effectively. The world continued moving forward with or without Srivijaya's participation. Sailors discussed newer destinations, attracting commerce and opportunities across growing networks. Names once secondary now appeared frequently in conversations among traders. Influence shifted gradually from familiar centers toward emerging competitors confidently. Maps changed, reflecting realities that previous generations would scarcely recognize. What seemed permanent proved surprisingly fragile when circumstances evolved dramatically. Srivijaya's story became less about conquest and more about transformation itself. The sea that created opportunity also carried it elsewhere eventually. As sunlight faded across the horizon, so did an extraordinary era. But the deepest lesson of Srivijaya was still waiting ahead. Most kingdoms fall because enemies conquer them through war and military force. Srivijaya's story followed a far more unusual and fascinating path instead. Its greatest enemy was not an army, fleet, or rival ruler. The true enemy was change itself, moving silently across generations and centuries. Trade routes evolved, priorities shifted, and opportunities appeared elsewhere unexpectedly. No fortress can stop transformation once the world begins changing fundamentally. Here lies the final twist hidden within Srivijaya's remarkable story. The kingdom mastered the sea better than almost anyone of its era. Yet mastery never meant ownership of forces constantly moving and adapting. The same waters that delivered prosperity eventually carried opportunities elsewhere too. Srivijaya built greatness upon movement, connection, and international commerce successfully. When those movements changed direction, everything changed alongside them inevitably. Ocean waves teach lessons often overlooked by even powerful civilizations historically. Survival depends not only on strength, but adaptation to changing conditions constantly. The largest ship may fail if it refuses adjusting course appropriately. Srivijaya's rise demonstrated vision, innovation, and strategic understanding of geography brilliantly. Its decline revealed how quickly advantages disappear when environments evolve dramatically. Together, these lessons create one of history's most compelling maritime stories. Although the kingdom faded, its influence shaped Southeast Asia permanently afterward. Trade networks, cultural exchanges, and regional connections carried its legacy forward. Even today, the waters once ruled by Srivijaya remain globally important. Ships still cross these routes, linking continents through commerce and movement daily. The kingdom disappeared, but the sea remembers every empire that sailed it. And among them, Srivijaya remains one of the greatest ever known.